People have used diaries to collect their thoughts and emotions throughout time. They're often the place in which we write about our personal experiences or confide in about our innermost secrets. Well, now a team of academics are working together to preserve the writings of thousands of people. They're asking the public to donate unwanted diaries so that they can keep them safe and use them as a database for researchers and interested readers to peruse. Rachel Smith is one of those contributors.
It's a simple question, really. What do you do? I've been asked countless times, answering differently depending on context or confidence. But from now on, I will not let one adjective describe me. I am everything and nothing. Others can label me as they see fit, but no mold can hold me. I am a woman of independence, meaning my life lies between schisms and glass slippers don't come in half sizes. Women like me have to rewrite the fairy tales, and I wonder if I'm drawn to the pink-fleshed salmon because they too know what it's like to swim upstream. But I prefer to live in saline waters, not just tears and sweat, but the ocean cleanses, stinging so I know healing isn't far behind.
Rachel Smith reading an extract from one of her own diaries. Well, the founder of the Great Diary Project joins me now in the studio. Welcome to the show, Dr. Finkel.
Very glad to be here.
I suppose the first place to start is where it all began for you.
Well, it all happened in the British Museum, which is where I work, and I read very ancient inscriptions, sometimes 3,000 or 4,000 years old, from the beginning of writing, and I'm used to trying to get people's lives out of written documents. And one day, a friend of mine came about 10 years ago with a cardboard box full of old books, which nobody wanted to buy from him, and they turned out to be diaries, and they were all diaries of one person. There were 76 volumes. And I immediately pulled out my wallet, gave him a few pounds. I said, I'll buy these on a whim, without any thought about it. I couldn't bear to think of them just, you know, being discarded. And nobody had wanted them. And when I started to think about it, it was extraordinary, because somebody had written an account of their whole lives, virtually every day, of their experiences in real detail, sometimes personal things, sometimes general things, describing with clear honesty and truth the whole world as they saw it, with no agenda to disguise anything, a real testimony, you know, like a tape recorder. And it seemed to me incredible that these things weren't being rescued anywhere.
We are very privileged because you've actually brought along two of the diaries, if you don't mind just picking these up for us. Right. So these are two of the first.
This is
and
the
inside
first
the
one
cover...
I read. It's virtually the oldest one in this man's collection. It's written in 1887, and inside the cover, before you get anywhere inside the secret pages between the covers, it says this: take notice, all persons, excuse me a moment, all persons who look at this diary without my leave are beastly sneaks.
Sneaks, and that's what we all are.
Well, that's the thing, and I tell you, since we've started this project, lots of people have said to me, look, aren't diaries private? Don't people confide their secrets? Is it right to kind of take them into an institution and look after them for the long-term future? Well, my feeling is this: people do use diaries for a private purpose in their own lives. This is certainly true. And if you find a handbag on the bus and there's a diary in it, you would never look at it because you know it was a private document. But when something is 75 or 100 years old or 200 years old, then that is not the most important characteristic anymore. And the words and the sentiments and the fears and the emotions, all the things that people write down, become a testimony which is really very precious, I think.
It is a great way of documenting history, like you say. However, we did hear Rachel reading, and she's obviously reading her own diary, so you have got recent examples too.
We do.
You think that's quite brave of her to do that?
I think it's brave of her, but actually she's a real poet, and poets like to read their poetry, so I'm glad that she did it. But actually her approach to diary writing, to write in verse, personal, private poetry, it's a very unusual thing. Most people write, sometimes got up, had breakfast, went to work, you know, and you read a few pages, and you think, well, that's not very interesting, and then suddenly it says, went in the garden, saw God, had tea, or something amazing like that. And often people also say to me, look, most diaries are very mundane, very tedious. Are they really worth rescuing for the future? And the fact is, they are all full of surprises. Even a diary that when you open it and it's concerned with just daily stuff, you think, oh, this isn't going to be very interesting. For sure, sometime in January, sometimes in November, something comes out and you think, my goodness. And there are all sorts of windows on people's behaviour. Because when people write a diary, the whole idea is that no one else is ever going to read it, basically. It's not secret like in a lead container, but it's private. So it means no one is looking over their shoulder. And this has very interesting consequences, because spelling and grammar and punctuation go out the window. You know that thing about I before E or E before I and all that stuff that they beat you about at school to get the spelling? All that goes out of the window, because no one's ever going to say, hey, just a minute, you've misspelt the word niece. People write by ear, they don't put capital letters, they put balloons, they cross things out. Sometimes it's very messy. Sometimes they say, no, that's wrong, and they write, no, that's wrong, or something like that. And it's like talking to a person, and even when they've been dead for 100, 200 years, it's fantastically revealing. And because I work with ancient inscriptions, if you have a really ancient document, you have to take it like a sponge in the bath, and you have to squeeze it. So you get the obvious stuff, but then you try and get the detail under the words, you know, the kind of sentiments, and it's exactly the same with these diaries.
It is an absolutely fantastic project, and I love the fact as well that you call yourselves diary rescuers rather than collectors.
Well, we call ourselves the Great Diary Project, and we're in Bishopsgate Library.
Yes.
And the thing is, we will take any kind of diary, long, short, fat, interesting, boring, anything whatsoever for the long-term future. And what will happen in 200 years' time, somebody will open one of these boxes and say, I don't believe this. And you know what will be most significant? The people then will realise that we are like them today.
Lovely.
And that is the truth.
Thank you very much for joining us. It'll be a great discovery to make.